Hello everyone! We are closing another plot point chapter, this time with WashiKono. Finally! It took a while. It wasn't as long time coming as Kogegoshi, but it still took a while before I got to it, so thank you for sticking by. I hope you will enjoy. As always, special thanks to my lovely patrons. You are keeping this channel going. He messed up. Royally. He realized it the moment he saw Konoha flinch away from him, something he had never done before. His own boyfriend ran away from him and closed himself in the bathroom, crying, all because he couldn't keep his temper in check. How much worse could it get? Washio let out a shuddered sigh, his own vision hazed as he got up from where his knees, weakened by the soft sobs coming through the door, sent him, heading to the living room to give Konoha some apparently much-needed space. How he managed to mess up his proposal plans so badly, he had no idea. All he wanted was to make Konoha happy, to make sure he knew he planned on staying by his side for the rest of their lives. And yet, he just made him cry instead. What a great boyfriend you are. He folded his head into his palms as he slumped on the couch, torn between the urge to tear his hair out and screaming in frustration. Though the latter would probably make things even worse. And so he kept quiet, just raking his fingers through his hair and trying to figure out what to do to make things better. If there even was anything capable of that. The fear in Konoha's eyes was enough of a waking call. It would be in any situation, but this was another level of bad. He was the cause of it, something he hated just imagining. And yet it was his reality now. The memory of the ring still safely nested in the box suddenly left a sour taste in the back of his throat. Did he even have the right to try asking the question after this? After everything? That's up to Akiri though. If he says no. It's just constricted with that thought, his heart feeling like it was getting crushed. But it wasn't his decision to make, and if Konoha rejected his proposal, then that was what he had to accept. Sighing, he got up again, scribbling a quick note for Konoha on a piece of paper to let him know he was going out. He left it on the table and grabbed his keys and wallet, heading out of the apartment. He had a lot of thinking to do. He settled on a bench in a park nearby, a strange numbness spreading through his body. Despite it being cloudy and with the prediction of rain, the park and its surroundings were full of families with kids, people walking their dogs, and couples enjoying each other's company. Seeing them pushed the invisible dagger deeper into Washio's heart, twisting and turning and making him nauseous. He would give anything to be able to hold Konoha's hand right now, to be able to pull him to his side, to tell him how much he wanted to spend the rest of his life with him through the ring now resting in his pocket. He wasn't even sure why he took it with him. Perhaps not to taint Konoha's decision process, even though he was sure that was a stupid thing to think. Or maybe just in a subconscious need to punish himself for his stupidity. No wonder he's always so on edge. One misstep and everything is falling apart. Or maybe it was long coming. Maybe. He shook his head before he could finish the thought in a desperate attempt to chase it away. It wasn't over. Not yet. He was going to fight for them, for their love if he was given the chance. He wasn't going to give up until Konoha told him to get lost. Just as he thought that, the first raindrop fell on his jacket. It was soon followed by another, then some more, and not even a few seconds after, the sky as if opened, sending chains of pouring water down on everyone's head. The park cleared in a record time, the quick exodus accompanied by excited screaming of kids and an occasional laugh from the couples. Yet, Washio didn't make any attempt to get up, letting the rain fall on his face, chills running through his skin when he got hit by a cold breeze. Maybe good Akira is home. At least he's warm. A tiny smile curled his lips with the reminder of how much Konoha hated cold and how he always huddled into Washio's clothes when they came home from school or work. He sighed. It all felt ages ago now. With a last look at the little box in his hand, he got up and hid it in his pocket, letting his legs decide where to go. He soon found himself in a completely different part of the city than their apartment was. The rain didn't stop pouring. On the contrary, it only seemed to gain strength. And yet, he didn't turn around to head home and continued forward, dedicated to keeping his promise to Konoha to let him think in peace. It was the least he could do. As he continued onwards, barely seeing the street through the water in his eyes, he noticed a little tucked-away sweets shop ahead of him on the other side of the road. And by the looks of it, they were selling cookies and strawberry shortcake, two things Konoha could almost kill for. His words, not Washio's. That might help settle his nerves if nothing else. Or at least fill his energy after crying. Determined, he headed straight to the shop. However, the second he stepped into the road, a loud honk of car horn made him jump back on the pavement. His heart jumped into his throat when the car sped around him, splashing him with water for good measure. Well, that was uncomfortably close. He took a few deep breaths to calm his racing heart, feeling his hands shaking a bit when he crossed the road for real this time after making sure there was no other car around. I'm calling Karma. He profusely apologized to the shopkeeper for the water dripping down his clothes and handed over all the cash he had on him to buy one of the beautifully decorated strawberry shortcakes and a batch of matcha cookies on top. Shivering from the wind outside, he carefully wrapped the paper box in the plastic bag to protect it from the onslaught of the rain and finally headed towards their home, worried he might damage the sweets if he continued his aimless walk. But even though he knew where approximately he was, it still took him surprisingly long until he saw the outline of their apartment complex. By the time he reached their door, the chills got into the very marrow of his bones, making goosebumps appear on his arms. Yet, he still hesitated before he turned the key in the lock, feeling like he was crossing some invisible boundary. It's fine, I'll just clear the space again if he doesn't want me around. I just need to get the box inside. However, he didn't even manage to take off his shoes when an echo of rushing footsteps reached his ears. In a mere second, Konoha appeared in the hallway, his eyes slightly widened and breath more rapid than Washio would like. Where the heck were you? Washio paused. That wasn't what he expected to hear. I went out. To let you think. He cringed inwardly, his voice sounding much hoarser than it was supposed to. Konoha clenched his jaw. Do you know how worried I was? You were gone for 4 hours! 4 hours! In a pouring rain! And I had no idea where you went because you left your phone here! What if something happened to you? Washio's mind flashed back to the very close call with the car some hour ago. He swallowed the note that it wouldn't really matter, instead focused on the fact that Konoha looked scared. But this time not of him, but rather for him. You were worried about me this much? Of course I was. I wanted to talk about everything and you just disappeared. Washio blinked a few times, only slowly comprehending what Konoha said. But before he could say anything, a loud sneeze left his mouth instead. His throat itching, he shivered as a new wave of cold bit into his wet skin, the soaked clothes sticking to his body like some sort of second skin. Very, very uncomfortable second skin. Konoha's eyebrows scrunched in apparent worry. How long did you walk in the downpour? You look ready to rinse. Since it started raining? Konoha froze, his eyes widening even more. Are you crazy? Take the clothes down, now, and go take a shower. I'll get you something dry to wear. You don't have to, Another sneeze shook with his body. I'm fine. Yeah, I can see that. He grabbed Washio's hand and started dragging him to the bathroom, muttering under his breath. Unbelievable, just unbelievable. He goes out and lets himself catch cold instead of going home. I didn't want to bother you. And it's only fair, isn't it? Konoha stopped in his tracks, his mouth opening and closing without any words coming out. Washio averted his eyes, shame and guilt bubbling in his chest. For what I did to you. He winced when Konoha smacked his shoulder, then once more. So you decided to hurt yourself? How dumb is that? As dumb as me, I suppose. He hesitated before he took Konoha's hand in his, surprised when Konoha didn't flinch away from his touch. I'm sorry, Akiri. This isn't how I wanted this to go, at all. I'm sorry. Sighing, Konoha shook his head and gently bumped their shoulders together, giving his hand a light squeeze. Let's talk after you get warm, okay? Go get the shower and change before you get pneumonia or something, and come to me. I'll listen. Washio nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. He resisted the urge to lean in for a kiss, pretty sure he would be crossing a boundary with it even though he wanted nothing more than to squeeze Konoha in his arms, and went in the bathroom to finally take off the wet clothes. A long, warm shower later, he sat on the couch huddled in several blankets, still shivering despite the heating and the cup of tea in his hands. Konoha watched him like a hawk, or a worried mother, the whole time, draping yet another blanket over his shoulders before he settled opposite, a second piece of the shortcake in his hands. So, about what happened? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to yell at you or scare you. I know it's a weak apology for making you doubt again and for hurting you like this, but I mean it, I swear. He sighed, lowering his head. It was supposed to be a nice surprise for you, and it still went down burning. He startled when Konoha reached over to cover his hand, and had to bite on his lip to stop it from quivering. I'm sorry too. I shouldn't have said those things either. It was a fair assessment of the situation. No, it wasn't. I know you. I know you would never even think of cheating. You are too good for that. If anything, I should have noticed you were unwell before jumping to conclusions. Taking a leap, Washio covered Konoha's hand with his other, his heart jumping with joy when Konoha didn't pull away. It's alright. I understand why you did. I want you to know it wasn't your fault. None of that was. And that I wasn't mad at you. I can never be. To his surprise, Konoha cracked a small smile. Silence settled in the room, though this time there was no tension hanging in the air. Okay, well, I know you said it was a secret, but can you tell me what it was about now? Washio bit his lip, reaching beside him where the little ring box sat hidden from Konoha's line of sight by the blankets. Was it a good idea to bring it up now, while they still weren't completely on the same terms as before? Maybe not, but in the end, it wasn't his choice to make. He put the box on the coffee table between them and opened the lid, glad the ring survived the rainy adventure without problem. The big ruby almost shone from the box, the little diamonds creating a halo around it only intensifying its dark red color. Konoha's lips parted, his eyes wide as he took in the sight of the ring. Is that what I think it is? He looked up, confusion, surprise, and a load of other emotions mixing in his expression. Tatsu... It is. It's an engagement ring. I wanted to give it to you since I bought it, but something always got in the way and I started to think that maybe it was a sign. So I asked some friends for advice, but I messed up even more. Wait, so when you were watching your phone all the time, you were asking for a proposal advice? Washio nodded. Konoha looked down on the ring, his hands starting to tremble. So this whole time... He hid his face in his palms, very accurately mirroring the image of despair Washio was in a few hours prior. Moving on pure instinct, Washio sat beside him and pulled him under his chin, his heart cracking with the whispered apologies leaving his beloved's mouth. It's alright. It's not your fault. How? If this... Shh. I'm serious. It's fine. I shouldn't have doubt in the first place and go for it before it grew over my head. He sighed. Even if it meant risking you would say no. Konoha sniffed and straightened up, hastily wiping his eyes while he clung to Washio's hand as if he was about to disappear the moment he let go. You really think I could say no to you? I've been in love with you for 7 years. How could I say no? Washio hesitated before he gently cupped Konoha's cheek. And now? Would you still say yes after everything? Konoha sniffed again, letting out a strangled chuckle. Ask me. Will you marry me? It felt a bit strange to finally be able to say those 4 words out loud. He had doubts, of course he did, but his every doubtful thought was cut short when Konoha threw his arms around his neck, burying his face in his shoulder. I will. Of course I will. All the invisible weight fell from Washio's back, letting him breathe freely again. He returned the embrace, relishing the feeling of having Konoha in his arms, while he promised himself he would never take things like this for granted. But we need to work on our communication skills before we get to wedding. Washio chuckled, his own voice sounding a bit strained. Agreed. He reached for the ring and carefully slid it on Konoha's finger, leaving a light kiss on it. It's a symbol of deep love and protection. A ruby, I mean. And commitment. I know you can't really wear it at work or while playing volleyball, but I still wanted you to have it, as a reminder of how much you mean to me. He lightly brushed his thumb under Konoha's eyes when the tears threatened to spill out, leaving hand nested against his now fiancé's cheek. His heart melted when Konoha leaned into the touch. Thank you. I'll wear it everywhere I can, I promise. Before Washio managed to say that wasn't necessary and that he just wanted Konoha to have it, a loud sneeze echoed through the flat. Konoha flinched before handing him a tissue and pushing him inside the blanket nest again. But now you need to get better. We wouldn't want it to get worse than some common cold, right? No, certainly not. Not now, or ever. Honestly, I really love this ring. Like, it's one of the most beautiful ones I've seen when I searched around for them. I love this one.